We're on number 5, the circle number 5, where now it just says that, well, the auditor's office mails out the proposed property tax statement. Well, in order to do that, obviously, we have to calculate the property tax itself. So page 5 is a basic tax calculation formula. We're not taking into consideration all the different bells and whistles and programs that the state offers, but it's a process that is done for every parcel in the county. So that first box there, the taxable market value, that's what we have received from the assessor's office. We're going to multiply that times the classification rate, which Laura touched on just a little bit. This is a separate sheet that is dispersed by the Department of Revenue and says if it's classified as this, you're going to multiply it times this amount. For example, agricultural land that's homesteaded, you're going to multiply by 0.5%. If it's commercial industrial property, that's how it's classified, and it's over $150,000 in value. Now you're going to multiply that by 2%. So right there, there's a 1.5% difference that you're looking at when we're doing our multiplication. So taking that taxable market value times the classification rate equals what we touched on earlier, the net tax capacity. Now that is going to be multiplied times the local tax rate. The local tax rate is that each local jurisdiction, townships, cities, school districts, watersheds, and so forth, they each have a budget for the year, right? So they take their budget less any revenue that they plan to actually take in or any aid that they're going to get from the state, and that gives them their levy amount. So we take the levy and divide it by the total net tax capacity for that jurisdiction, and that gives us our local tax rate. So we have lots of information on our website about tax rates and so forth, but just to highlight a couple, the city with the lowest tax rate happens to be the city of Winthrop at 81.46%. The next lowest is Arlington. Yeah, Jenny's a thumbs up. Arlington is 89.4%. And so just to show you the contrast, the city with the highest local tax rate is Gibbon at 252%. A big portion of that change or the difference there is the commercial and industrial that you have here that they don't have in Gibbon. Everyone could understand that, I'm sure. So now we've had that taxable market value times the class rate to equal the net tax capacity times the local tax rate to equal our base tax. Okay, now remember this is the basic formula, so we're not going to get into everything, but a few things I'm going to touch on underneath there is once you have your base tax, then you're going to subtract off any applicable credits. I know a credit that has been a hot topic in our school district lately is the school building bond and agricultural credit. And so what exactly is that? If you have property that is classified as agricultural, then this is something that automatically gets applied to your property if there is a building project that has gone on that was voter approved in your school district or the school district where your property lies. So this is a new law that was put in place in 2017 for the 2018 payable taxes. What it does is that any portion of tax that you have to pay to that debt for that voter approved levy, 40% of that is you don't have to pay out of your pocket. 40%, the school district still gets all of it, but 40% is paid out of your other pocket from the state. We all pay taxes to the state, but it's basically spread out amongst everyone in the state. The reason that this was enacted is because the legislature realized that it was going to be a hard time building schools out in greater Minnesota because farmers, particularly, or people that own agricultural land, it was written into law that they had to pay for a new school on every dollar, every acre of property that they owned. Where if you live in town, it's on the house, your garage, and your property. So again, all the property you own, but it's a lower amount, right? And both of them, if you live out in the country or live in town, both of you have the same ability to send a family to school, right? So just because you own more agricultural land doesn't mean you automatically have 40 kids or that sort of thing, right? So it was to equalize things. So that the rest of that funding now comes from the state. Now each year that amount increases. So for payable 2020, it's at 50% of that funding is coming from the state instead of out of your pocket. 2021 it goes up to 55%, 2022 it's 60%, and then after 2022 it's 70%, and that's where it stays. So out of that amount that you have to pay for your egg land, 70% is coming from the state, 30% is out of your pocket. Any questions on that? All right, so then the next thing that's going to be added on there is the operating referendum tax. So statute authorizes schools to increase their general fund levy through a voter approval. So it's whatever they need to operate. If they don't have enough funds, we're going to go to the voters and get more money in order to continue operating. This is done on your house, garage, and first acre. So no matter if you live in town, live in the country, it's not on all the property, house, garage, and first acre. And that's referred to as your referendum market value. Then the next thing added in is the bonding referendum tax. So this is the actual portion that you would have to pay for that debt. So general obligation bonds are issued. You have for a new school, additions, renovations, whatever it may be. And again, that's on all your property, but you may apply for that, or that credit may apply to you if you have agricultural land. Then the last thing added in here is the state general tax. Right now, this is set at 38.846%, so 38.8%. What that is if you are a business owner, you have to take your net tax capacity from up above again, multiply it times 38.8%, and that is paid into the state, for the state portion of your tax. So there has been a push recently that they changed the law a little bit so that small business owners get a break. So you're not taxed on your first $100,000 of value, but everything after that. It's a little break. Yes, just for the state tax. Okay, so that's the basic tax formula. Any questions on that? All right, so moving on to page 6. So in our wheel there it says you have the opportunity to comment.